Hey there, it's Sam. We're going to build our first website. I promise by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to create something similar to what I've shown here. We've got a title, we've got a navigation bar, and also a footer and some call to action buttons. And we also have some blog content here. Now, to those who are not familiar with this kind of text, they are not a language, but it's called as lorem ipsum text. They are just some placeholder that mimics actual text, and I left it there just because I don't know what to write for my awesome blog yet. Alright, let's start coding. First of all, open up VS Code. If you haven't got that installed already, the link is in the description. Once you're in VS Code, click on File and open up your project folder. Once you're there, create an index.html file in the project folder. The first line of the HTML file will always be the special doctype tag, and that will tell the browser to render this page in HTML5. You can hit tab to autocomplete. Then we have the root HTML tag, specify the language to be English. And remember from the previous lesson, we need to have a head and body tag inside the root element. Let's create the head element, and let's put a title tag inside it. The title tag will define the title of this page. And next, let's create a body tag and leave it empty for now. Did you see the white dot up there in the File tab? That means our file is unsafe. Hit Ctrl Save to save the file, and let's view our HTML in our browser. Just drag and drop the file into the URL bar. Our HTML file is loaded. Right now it's blank because we've got nothing inside the body tag, but our page title is showing. But here's the thing. If I want to change something in my HTML file, we'll need to hit Ctrl S to save the file and go back to the browser to refresh to see the changes. It's kind of tedious and it's not fluid. Don't you worry, here's some magic trick you can use to streamline this process. First of all, hit Ctrl-Shift-P to show the command palette and search for autosave and hit enter or click on it. That would save us some time from manually hitting Ctrl S to save the file. So now whenever I type in something, the white dot is no longer up there. Next, let's go to the extension panel and install an extension called the Live Server. Click on install to pull that up in your VS Code. Let's go back to index.html, right click and select open with Live Server, and the browser window should pop up. What the Live Server does is it automatically refreshes the browser if it detected some changes in your HTML file. So that means with autosave and Live Server, we're pretty much invincible. Let's test it. I'll change my title again and see, it changes the title automatically without me doing anything. And that's the magic of Live Server. Now it's time to focus on writing content for our awesome blog. First of all, let me introduce you to the most basic HTML element, the div element. Div stands for division, and you can pretty much use it for anything. We use div to group content to make our code more organized. Or when you don't know what else to use, div is generally the default choice. Now let me put in something inside our div element. We can put in some placeholder text by typing in lorem and hit tab. VS Code will automatically generate some placeholder text, which is good for prototyping. We usually refer this as the lorem ipsum text. And no, it's not a language, and it has no meanings at all. It does, however, resembles a true language, and therefore ideal to put it as a placeholder. Anyway, let's create a couple more of them. You can hit Ctrl-Shift down to duplicate lines of code. Now our web page is filled with text. There are other variants of div that we can use. For example, the article element, the main element, a section element, and the aside element. These elements behave similarly to a div. The only difference is just their name, and they are sometimes referred to as the semantics element, even though this element does no effect to its content whatsoever. They do have a recommended purpose. For example, the section element is meant to group content by section, and the aside element is meant for content that is indirectly related to the main content of a web page. For example, a sidebar. These elements are called semantic elements for a reason. because it gives meaning to the content of your web page. So when a search engine scans a page, it will know where to look for important content and perhaps use that content to boost your search engine ranking, also known as SEO. There's nothing stops you from abusing these semantic elements. For example, putting the main content of our blog inside the aside element, but that would surely hurt our SEO ranking. So do follow the recommended guideline to put the correct content inside the semantic element. The link is in the description, so feel free to have a read on the official documentation. Next, I want to show you how to create a heading. There are 6 types of headings in HTML, starting from heading 1 being the largest until heading 6 being the smallest. Let's see them in action. The tag is simple, it's simply H plus the size of the heading. And as you can see in the browser, we've got headings with different sizes. Next, I want to show you the paragraph element. It's just a simple P tag. And this goes without saying, paragraph is meant for long text, where it's not that important. We can also create buttons by just using the button tag. Whatever we put inside the button will become the display text of the button. We can also grab input from the user by using the input tag. The input tag will create an input field where the user can type in data to the website. Now the input tag is one of the elements that does not need to be closed. There are different types of input field. By default, it lets you to enter text data. If we want to change the input type, we just need to pass in what we call the element attribute to the element. In this case, we want to change the type attribute. Changing the type will change the functionality of the input field as well, as you can see in the browser. Again, you can see all the available input type in the documentation. The link again is in the description. Let's learn to create a list next. There are 2 types of list, an ordered list and an unordered list. Ordered list has numbers and unordered lists are pretty much bullet points. To create an ordered list, we use the OL tag, stands for ordered list of course, and we need to put in a series of LI, stands for list items, as its children. As you can see in the browser, it is showing a numbered list. With unordered list, it is the same deal, we just need to change OL to UL. And we get a list of bullets items. If we want to make a link, we will need to use something called the anchor tag, shorthand A. We just need to wrap our text with the A tag and pass in a href attribute to the A tag, and that will be the destination of the link. If you don't want that link to redirect you to somewhere, just pass in a hash symbol, and clicking on the link will not do anything. However, if you want your link to redirect you to somewhere else, just pass in a URL inside the href attribute. The last thing I want to show you in this lesson is the table element. Table is a little bit more complicated than the other elements that we have learned so far. To create a table, we use the table tag, and the table has 2 components, the table head and table body. The table head has a tag of t-head, and table body has a tag of t-body. Inside the t-head tag, we would put in the columns of the table. To do that, we first need to define a table row by using a tr tag. Let's create a table of junk food. Our table heading, or th, would be name, quantity, and calories. Once we got our column set up, let's move on to the table body. Similar to the headings, we first need to define a table row. Inside of the table row, instead of using th, we use table data, or td. Remember, we only got 3 table headings, so we should only put in 3 table data. And that's it, that's one single row. Let's add a few more. Pizza and ice cream. And that's it, that's how you create a table. Just a quick recap, we first need the table tag, followed by the table head and table body. The table head is responsible for the table columns, where we put in the headings. We use tr to create a row and th for the columns. The table body is where we put in all our table data. Again, for each row, we need a tr tag, and inside the tr, we put in td for table data, and that we need to match up with the numbers of columns we have. Now it's time to put everything into practice. It's your turn to code. Pause the video and see if you can replicate this web page. Just a few hints: Google is the best friend, and try to look up for the other semantic elements online. Alright, let's start from scratch. Let's create the navigation links. First, we will insert the header element, followed by nav, stands for navigation, and finally an unordered list. For each list item, we want to have a link in them. Let's do that. So use the a tag with the href attribute and put down the link text. Let's make a few copies of them and change the text in it. We also want to include an input field to search for the articles. The type will be text, and we'll use the placeholder attribute to put down a placeholder inside the input field. Next, let's create a section tag to group all of our articles. Let's create a heading, followed by an article tag, and put in some lorem ipsum text, and just copy and paste to create a few more of them. Let's create another section for our buttons. We'll put a div in there, followed by 2 buttons, sign up and share. Once that's done, let's create our footer. Similar to the header, we use a footer element, followed by an unordered list. And each list item would contain a link. And that's pretty much it. Please make sure you are comfortable with the HTML elements before moving on to the next lesson. Rewatch this lesson for a few more times if necessary. Otherwise, I'll see you again shortly. If you enjoyed the content of this video, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell icon for more content to come. It will really help me out. Thanks for the support.